They called it the fever, but what crept through the cracked streets was something older, a blue death, winding silent through alleys where laughter once echoed. In a city that would not look back, families vanished overnight, houses emptied, and memories swept away like mud after a storm. All that remains is the hush of doors never reopened, the hush of names scratched from ledgers. This is the story of a neighborhood erased, not by fire or war, but by water laced with despair and a society eager to forget. What happens when history's victims are dissolved before our eyes? Before we dive into these forgotten stories of survival and sorrow, consider hitting that like button and subscribing. And tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing we're exploring the buried past together, across time and space. Dawn in the vanished quarter, when mist still clings to broken eaves, and the cobblestones glisten with last night's rain. You wake to the hush before the market stirs, before the bell, before the clatter of carts and copper coins, before the world remembers itself. There is a breathless hush in these streets, as if the city is holding its memory close, refusing to release the names and faces woven into its flesh. The air is thick with smoke from cook fires and the sharp sweetness of ripening fruit. Laundry hangs heavy on sagging lines, each shirt and sheet moving gently as if inhabited by ghosts. Beneath the open windows, children's laughter splashes like water, brief and bright, chased by the low warnings of mothers, hunched over bread and soup, their voices tired but tender. The old men linger by the corner silent, watchful, carved into habit as much as stone. You can hear them discussing the price of onions, the rise of the river, and the illnesses that seem to hover at the edges of every season. Like crows dot at the heart of this world is the well-chipped stone circle deep in the square, half circled by hawkers and the tired hopeful. Every day, the women gather, buckets scraping, voices tumbling in a dozen dialects. This is where rumors pool, where love letters are passed, where quarrels echo and are forgotten by sunset. You can almost taste the water-cold, metallic, a promise and a threat. Here, futures mingle with secrets, and the pull of the rope is the same as the pull of survival. It is easy, in this moment, to believe that life is unbreakable. The market stalls are fragrant with bruised peaches and old spice, the air thrumming with the barter of hope and need. Shoes slap on the wet stone, babies cry, lovers meet under archways, dark with moss and longing. There is music if you listen, the rhythm of hammers on tin, the prayer song of a peddler's flute, the steady pulse of heartbeats hiding behind every locked door. But the walls sweat with the history of fear marks left by fires, stains where rain found its way through ruined roofs, the perpetual shiver that lingers when night settles early. The city, they say, remembers everything, even what it tries to forget. Every footfall echoes with the ghosts of older losses, famine, fever, wars fought for causes no one can quite name. Tonight, as lamps flicker and wind pulls at the shutters, there is a feeling you cannot shake, the sense of being watched by something, formless and old, as if the well itself keeps secrets deeper than any bucket could reach. Shadows gather in the alleyways, heavy with the scent of rot and river mud, and the moon stains the puddles blue. You look at your neighbor's face and see the flicker of doubt, a question unasked, a silence grown too thick for words. The normal here is always tinged with the knowledge that it cannot last. In every smile, a nervous glance. In every celebration, a whisper of warning. The city breathes around you, beautiful and precarious, like a song sung on the edge of forgetting. Even now, as night falls and the wells grow quiet, a sense of impending sorrow grows heavy unseen, but already settling in the marrow of every street, every soul got in the hush between days, when lantern smoke curls against the pale sky and the streets glisten with last night's secrets. The first shadows slip in unnoticed. They are small, almost gentle, just a cough that lingers too long. A girl who does not rise from her mat at dawn. A boy whose laughter grows thin and brittle. There is no name yet for what is spreading, only a hush that falls between neighbors. As eyes linger a little too long, as water from the well tastes faintly of iron and regret, the neighborhood carries on because it must. Carts grind over stones. Housewives chase after barefoot children, scolding in languages half lost to time. Men with hands calloused by brick and rope gather for morning work, joking quietly about the cold, never about the rumors that flicker. At the edge of every conversation. Here, pride is armor. No one wants to be the first to admit fear. No one wants to be marked by suspicion. But beneath the surface, anxiety coils tight. A merchant woman counts coins at her stall, her fingers trembling as she wonders if the illness took her neighbor's boy, or simply the endless hunger that haunts these streets. In a cramped room behind a boarded shop, a family burns old rags, scrubbing the floor until their knuckles bleed, as if hard work can ward off what lurks unseen. A midwife passes quietly between houses, her hands gentle but her face shadowed, hearing the same whispered pleas. Don't tell anyone. Don't let them come for us. Municipal men aloof, clean-shaven, indifferent stride through the district with notebooks and practiced frowns. They do not see what is hidden behind half-closed shutters. The fathers returning late, hollow-eyed, the mothers hunched over children, watching for fever, measuring breaths in the darkness. The officials' words are meant for each other, not for the people they step past. It is the filth, it is their own fault, it is not our concern. Blame hangs thick as coal dust, settling on those who have always been blamed immigrants. The poor, the voiceless, the ones whose names are never written in the city's golden books. A schoolboy sits by the window, watching the city's finer. Folk pass by in polished boots and wonders why his street is always last to be swept, why their pleas for clean water are always lost in bureaucratic silence. In his mother's eyes, he sees the exhaustion of centuries, a resignation that folds itself into every corner of their tiny flat. He presses his hand to the glass and feels the coolness, imagines a world outside this web of hunger and waiting. Prejudice, like the sickness itself, moves quietly, invisible but deadly. The district's reputation grows sour in gossip beyond its borders. They are dirty, some say. They bring trouble, others whisper. Even as the first deaths are tucked away, bodies carried out at night, mourned in silence, the city chooses to look elsewhere, to blame the victims for the coming storm. Indifference becomes policy. Cruelty is disguised as common sense. Still, hope flickers, stubborn and wild. A young laborer slips his wages into his mother's apron, promising that next week will be better. A grandmother gathers herbs in secret, singing old songs meant to ward off evil. The people here have learned to survive on the edge of disaster, to stitch life together from scraps and shadows. Yet as dusk falls and the air grows heavy, denial gives way to dread. The streets feel narrower, the well water colder, the silence is longer. Behind each closed door, hearts pound with the knowledge that something nameless is drawing closer, an enemy, bred by neglect, fed by prejudice, invited by the city's indifference. The seeds have been sown, silent and deep, and now the whole world seems to hold its breath, waiting for the ruin that no one will name. At first, the sickness is a rumor that creeps along the walls at midnight, an uninvited guest, thin as fog, and twice as cold. But soon it steps brazenly into daylight, splashing blue across the map of lives, leaving its mark on doorways, linens, and the faces of the living. The air thickens with dread, heavy as morning close. Now, every cough is a drumbeat of panic. Every silence, an omen that a baker's boy is the first to vanish. The oven cools, dough left to harden beneath his mother's shaking hands. On another street, The old shoemaker's wife, once famous for her laughter, becomes a whisper behind drawn curtains, her bed a raft drifting between fever and delirium. The priest's voice cracks at funerals, grown too frequent, prayers tumbling, over names not yet learned, over children whose shoes still stand by the door. The neighborhood turns inward. Trust, once woven into the very stones, begins to unravel. Doors close sooner. Windows become eyes, wary and rimmed with suspicion. Old friends pass without a word, gaze fixed on the gutters. In the market, glances dart from face to face searching. For signs, a tremor in the hand, a pallor in the cheeks, sweat where there should be only the glow of honest labor. People count distance and footsteps, breathing behind sleeves, crossing themselves with superstition. Fear multiplies in secret. Rooms. Families gather by lamplight, counting symptoms, tallying absences, waiting for a knock that will not bring help but more bad news. A mother wipes her child's brow with trembling hands, humming lullabies that taste of desperation. In another house, a father stares at the empty place at the table, his grief a silence so vast it threatens to swallow the room. Every act of love is now shadowed by terror. A shared cup, a touch, a whispered goodnight. And still, the city looks away. Wealthier districts barricade themselves in denial, whispers of blame curling like smoke from their well-fed fires. They say, it is their filth, their curse, not ours. Help comes late, if at all. Sometimes it comes. As men with masks and rough voices, dragging bodies out before dawn, leaving the living to bleach doorsteps, and pray that this too will pass them by. Bonds fray and snap. The market square empties, its usual symphony of haggling and laughter, replaced by the hollow echo of abandoned stalls. Rituals collapse, weddings postponed, festivals forgotten, the very rhythm of the days ruptured. Some cling to old superstitions, burning herbs, enchanting prayers against the blue death. Others, driven mad by isolation and dread, lash out at neighbors, hunting for a scapegoat, a cause, a shape to the nightmare. Anguish settles into the bones. Parents bury children in shallow graves, unable to afford prayers or proper mourning. The bells toll less often, now no one left to ring them, no one left to listen. Grief becomes a private burden, a wound that festers behind closed doors. Where once there was a village, a tangle of lives, loud and complicated, now there is only the hollow sound of loss, punctuated by the steady, pitiless march of the disease. Night falls sooner, thick as a shroud. Fires burn low, and in the blue-black darkness, hope rots. You can hear it, the shivering of the river, the hollow scrape of empty buckets, the ache of prayers unanswered. The city's gaze slides away, unwilling to witness. Betrayed by those who should have protected them, the people of the neighborhood are left to navigate their ruin alone, each heart thumping in time with the unspeakable question, who will be next? Here in the fracture, all certainty dies. The blue stain spreads, and with it, the neighborhood unravels one beloved face, one broken ritual, one fading hope at a time got in the weak morning. After so many sleepless nights, a different kind of silence comes, a silence not of sorrow, but of boots and orders. The city's officials arrive behind closed carriages, their faces masked by scars, eyes empty as frost. Their arrival is neither rescue nor condolence. They carry with them not medicine but decree, not solace but the machinery of erasure. First act is always quarantine a word that tastes like iron, that burns with authority. Boundaries are drawn in chalk and rope, the living penned in with the dead. Barricades appear overnight, cartloads of stone, squads of men with rifles and masks. Where children once traced games in the dust, now soldiers shout can ward off any who approach. A man dares to protest, and is struck down not with violence, but with indifference, a gaze that refuses to register his existence. Inside the barricade, those who remain are ghosts before their time. The world grows smaller, pressed between wall and fear. Food arrives late, if at all. Water stinks of chemicals poured by gloved hands. All visitors are forbidden, and letters from loved ones are confiscated, burned with the rest of the contaminated. Trash. You sense a shift. No longer is this an epidemic of sickness alone, but an epidemic of forgetting. When officials speak, it is not to offer comfort, but to deliver edicts. Property is catalogued, marked, and condemned. The voices of the living are drowned by the scrape of pen across paper red lines through deeds, signatures on maps. Whole streets are declared unsanitary and scheduled for demolition, their histories rewritten as blight and error. A family watches their home marked with a red cross, the color bright and final against their battered door dot, and as the weeks pass, survivors are not permitted to grieve. Instead, they are interrogated, registered, and finally escorted away under the pretext of resettlement. Mothers are made to abandon the toys of children already gone. Old men clutch photographs, whose faces will soon mean nothing to any census or archive. The neighborhood is emptied, like a gutted house memory swept out with the dust. No one is allowed to tend the graves. The dead are removed at night, loaded onto carts by men with lanterns and covered faces, names recorded hastily or not at all. Even mourning is forbidden. Stairs must be hidden, prayers whispered into sleeves. A priest, caught saying a last blessing, is driven away by threat of arrest. The rituals that once bound the living to the lost are dismantled, piece by piece, until grief itself becomes another kind of contagion. Outside the quarantine, the city redraws its maps. The old names vanish. The lost district becomes a blank space, an improvement on official records, erased from the collective mind. Those who ask after it are met with polite dismissal. That place? It was always unfit for habitation. Documents disappear. Stories are unspoken, discouraged, replaced by rumor and euphemism. The history that remains is that of those in power, and it is written in silence. Some try to resist. An elderly woman sneaks back under cover of night, clutching a handful of earth from her vanished courtyard, the only relic of a life wiped clean. A boy etches his family's name into the underside of a bridge, hoping against hope that someone, someday, will see and remember. But resistance is frail in the face of bureaucracy. Paper, stamp, and gavel are as destructive as any plague dot in the end. The violence is complete not just in body, but in memory. The city does not weep for what it has lost. The blank space grows, swallowing the laughter and sorrow, the histories and hopes of thousands, until all that remains is an ache, unspoken and unacknowledged, pulsing beneath the stones where a neighborhood once lived and breathed. In the days after the erasure, the world above resumes its slow, indifferent churn. Somewhere, the markets open and the city's heart beats on unaware, or unwilling, to recall the vanished. Yet below, where once there were houses and tangled alleys, only absence lingers. The streets are unmarked, the courtyards hollow, the stones bare of memory. Here, silence is king, not the gentle hush of sleep, but a silence stretched so thin it trembles, echoing with what cannot return. The sun touches these empty lanes, but finds nothing to illuminate. No voices bounce off the walls. No scent of bread rises from windows. The very air seems lighter for what it no longer carries. No laughter, no secrets, no sighs. Even the dogs avoid this place, as if its emptiness gnaws at them. To wander. Here is to drift through a mausoleum with no graves, a museum of the erased. The names once etched above doors are scrubbed away, replaced by the impersonal scrawl of new claims or, more often, left blank as if waiting for an identity that will never come. Weeds curl from cracked stones. Rain gathers in potholes, reflecting only sky and the memory of footfalls. Sometimes a lone shoe or broken pot turns up in the mud, fragile relics of stories no one will tell. Those who survived pass quickly by, eyes lowered, hearts heavy with things unsaid. They know this place holds the shape of their loss, a loss, unspoken in polite company, unwelcome at city feasts, treated like a shameful inheritance. To remember is to ache, so they learn instead the art of forgetting. They practice silence, bury photographs, invent new routes home. Each step is a negotiation. With the past, how much to recall, how much to conceal, how much to invent down above, life finds new rhythms. The city authorities pat themselves on the back for a plague contained. Officials draft plans for parks, for gardens, for monuments that will never mention the dead. Rumors replace history, spreading like smoke. It was always like this. Some say, nothing of worth was lost, others assure, folding tragedy into myth until it is unrecognizable, safe, but beneath, the ground is restless. Grief curls in the shadows, waiting for nightfall. There are those who refuse to let go. A mother who lights a candle by the rubble each dusk. A girl who scribbles her brother's name in chalk, again and again, until rain washes it away. For them, the weight of absence is unbearable, a constant hunger, an ache that cannot be named. Each silence is a wound, each empty street a grave. Sometimes in the hush before dawn, you might sense their presence, those who cannot leave, who walk the streets with no names, bound by longing and unfinished mourning. The city may try to forget, but these ghosts linger, drifting between stones. And memories, persistent as the fog, their footsteps haunt the night, and the wind carries their whispers. Remember us. Remember what was taken. Remember what you tried to bury. Yet the world does not look back. Amnesia settles over the city like fresh snow, erasing every trace but the pain carried by the few who remember, those condemned to wander streets with no names, forever searching for a place where memory might be allowed to bloom. Beneath the smooth skin of the city, scraps remain tattered remnants that refuse to dissolve. A faded photograph, corners curled and faces blurred, is kept in a pocket or beneath a mattress, its secrets pressed close against the heart. An old melody, half remembered, drifts down a stairwell on lonely evenings, carrying with it the taste of lost kitchens and vanished hands. The world above has forgotten, but these survivors, scattered like autumn leaves, hold tight to what fragments they can. A woman, her hair iron gray and her eyes sharp as winter, sits by the fire in a distant room. Her tongue is rough with old bitterness, but she remembers every face, every name. She tells the story again and again to anyone who will listen, a litany of losses, a catalogue of injustice. Her grandchildren shift in their seats, embarrassed or impatient. They do not know what it means to carry a world that no longer exists. Still, she persists, each telling a small rebellion against oblivion. Elsewhere, a laborer with stooped shoulders pauses at a bridge, tracing his fingers over a scratch barely visible beneath the paint a name, a date, a desperate plea not to be erased. Some nights he dreams of the streets as they were, vibrant and tangled, and wakes with tears drying on his cheeks. Each day he folds himself back into the city's rhythm, silent and unnoticed, his grief a shadow at his heel. Children play in courtyards that do not remember. Their laughter is bright, untainted by memory, but sometimes they find odd things. In the dirt, a locket, a button, a fragment of blue tile. These artifacts are treasures in their games, but for the adults who notice, each is a wound reopened, a whispered reminder that nothing truly disappears, that history clings even in broken pieces. The survivors move through a world eager to erase them, carrying an invisible burden. They learn to swallow their stories, to smile through the ache of exclusion, to gather in quiet corners and trade memories in hushed tones. Guilt curls in the hollow spaces, the guilt of having endured when so many others vanished. The guilt of forgetting, of letting the edges of memory blur. Yet within the exhaustion, a fragile hope survives, a hope that their scars are not meaningless, that someone someday might piece together these scraps and listen. Against the indifference of the city, against the cold tide of official forgetting, they endure. Their existence, their remembrance, is an act of quiet defiance. In the end, what remains are not monuments or records, but the stubborn persistence of those who will not let memory die. In fragments and whispers, in broken songs and secret keepsakes, the story survives, aching, incomplete, but alive. The world moves on, but somewhere, against the current, scraps of survival resist the silence. Flickering in the dusk like stubborn flames. There are places the map no longer marks, but the earth remembers. Beneath the bustling rhythm of the city beneath, glass towers, busy markets, and new pavements, an echo persists. It shivers up through the stones at dusk, travels in the water that runs beneath streets now renamed. The echo is not loud, but it is constant. A pulse of loss that refuses to be stilled. Here, the vanished neighborhood lives on, not as a ruin, but as a question. What does it mean for a city to erase its own memory? For a people to survive only? In fragments, scraps of song, a child's drawing unearthed in rubble, a name whispered in the night by someone who cannot forget. Each omission is a small violence, each silence a debt. The living owe the dead. We walk through the present, certain of our progress, while just below our feet lies a graveyard of stories that should have warned us, shaped us, shielded us from repeating the same old cruelties. The blue stain of erasure is not confined to a single neighborhood, a single age. It spreads wherever suffering is hidden for the sake of comfort, wherever grief is pressed into silence, wherever the powerful build over the bones of the powerless. Memory is a fragile inheritance. It asks for courage to look back, to see clearly, to carry what is ugly and unresolved. When we forget, the price is not just the fading of a name or the loss of a street, but the quiet withering of our own humanity. What are we, if not the sum of those we have mourned, the stories we dare to retell? Perhaps in a moment of stillness, you feel it, a chill that is not from the wind, a sadness that belongs to no one and everyone at once. It is the echo underneath, the ache of lives cut short, loves unspoken, whole worlds consigned to darkness. The city moves on, paving, building, celebrating its own renewal. But the echo remains, urging us to pause, to listen, to bear witness. So let us not look away. Let us walk softly where the streets have no names and the wells stand silent. And let us speak for those whom history would rather leave behind. For every forgotten neighborhood, every erased name, there is a lesson waiting in the shadows. That remembrance is resistance, that every echo is a call not to let go, not to let another world disappear beneath our feet, unwept and unheard.